And as a mystic means that, I don't mean in a woo-woo way, I mean in a way of establishing a connection to the divine, to your higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, so that you can establish a relationship, so you can figure out that the real reason you're here is to work on your own stuff so that you can be of service to other people. That's it. Otherwise, it's a pointless life.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And you're really going to enjoy this podcast today. I would probably say of all the podcasts I've done thus far, I don't think I've had so many mic drop moments as the one that I got today. So you're really going to want to tune in. What we talk about today comes from a martial arts master. And you know, the people who study martial arts really study philosophy as well. And this person really digs into his craft. And when you hear him speak, you'll just see how eloquent and how simple he bestows his philosophy in life. And, you know, the same things and the same techniques used for a martial artist to be disciplined is the same type of techniques that we need to obtain optimal health, and the same techniques that we need to really find our true selves. You know, on today's podcast, we really talk about accessing flow states. We talk about accessing our true selves. You know, many of you may or may not know, but so many times we operate in autopilot. And autopilot is the most primitive part of the brain. Some people call it the default mode network. And the default mode network is something that automatically goes in the background when you're not thinking. And that's when so many thoughts come in. And imagine all the thoughts that kind of come into your mind, at least 70 to 80,000 a day. Most of those are negative. And there's a reason for that to be the case. Those negative thoughts are there to scan out for danger, because this primitive part of the mind, the default mode network, is there to help us survive and not to thrive. And who we really are is, yes, we have this survival part of us. It helps us not fall off a cliff when we're close to one. It helps us not burn our hand again if we've got burned once on the stove before. It protects us. It's a survival mechanism, but again, not there to help us thrive. So we can't have that part lead our lives. So today's episode is really about noticing, being aware when we're in autopilot and not going from that place, not going from a place of reactions, but from a place of conscious choosing. Because if you can do that, our success, our health, our relationships, everything we want in the world is really the lagging effect of our conscious choices that we make over and over and over again. If we don't make those conscious choices, if we just go back to this autopilot, then we're living in survival mode and not in the thrive state. That's why this episode is so packed with information. Also, let me ask you, have you ever had a goal for yourself, whether it be in health, in business, whatever it is, to transform? Have you ever had a desire to transform so much, but yet you get to day 1, day 3, day 10 of your transformation and you quit? A lot of people think that's discipline. And on today's podcast, we dispel that myth of how it's actually not discipline. You'll be surprised to find out how. So this podcast is really about, 1, tapping into the flow states, and 2, identifying your most authentic self and choosing the person, the health, the soul that you want to be in this world. So I'm so excited for you to listen to this podcast. Again, I'm your host, Dr. V. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast if you've gotten some value with it. And to help the show grow, go to ratethispodcast.com/thrive state. Leave us a 5-star review, because it's going to help, you know, get this message and bring it out to more people. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And I just want to introduce our guest today. I met him in Kauai when we met with so many thought leaders and experts from all around the world in so many different disciplines. His name is Sifu Singh. He's a speaker, an author, and high performance coach. You have people like Jack Canfield that wrote the foreword for his book, because he's the guy Jack Canfield brought in to train companies. He has trained SWAT teams, military, police, and over 100 law enforcement agencies all around the globe. He is a 23rd generation Tai Chi Master and is responsible for spreading Bruce Lee's martial arts and philosophical legacy. He's a second generation Wing Chun disciple in the Ip Man and Lung Sheng Ben Der lineage. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a guru in Kali, Eskrima, and FMA. He's also a wrestling, boxing, and Samadhi coach. He is an advanced medical Qigong practitioner through his online video programs, DVDs, seminars, private immersion programs. He spreads physical, mental, and philosophical aspects of the martial arts. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a real treat. You're going to want to bring your pen and paper out. There's so many notes you're going to want to take from this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Thrive State podcast, Sifu Singh.
So I have a challenge I give people. It's called the 5x5x5. For 5 days, 5 times a day, for 5 minutes, I want you to set 5 alarms. So first one is in the morning before you start your day. Second one's before lunch. The third one's in mid-afternoon. Fourth one's before dinner. Fifth one's before you sleep. So these become your check-ins. So you're checking into yourself. And in that moment, all I want you to do is just stop and focus on your inhale and exhale and see if you could just practice the breathing of the inhale and the exhale and achieve stillness. So stillness of the mind, the breath, and the body. So when you stop, you still the body. Sit up erect. Now with the breath, you're focusing on that still point between the inhale and the exhale, between the exhale and the inhale. And the still point of the mind is it's not in the future or in the past. It's right here on the breath. That simple task. If you do that 5 times a day for 5 minutes, for 5 days, you're going to change your perspective already. But what it is that you're tapping back into yourself continuously throughout the day. You're catching your thoughts continuously throughout the day. You're focusing back on your breath continuously throughout the day. You're teaching and training yourself to enter stillness throughout the day. And after a while, you condition your mind to it and your mind starts catching it. And then that will start to make a difference in how you approach things. It also changes the level of your awareness. That day changed my life forever because I experienced the beauty of chaos, this most peaceful moment of my life, where I was completely free of myself, my masks, my limitations, my acquired personality, who I thought I was, my ego, all of it was gone and I was free and I felt 100% the present moment. I was in a deeper than flow state. I was connected to everything around me like never before. But now I'm filled with anger. I'm filled with fear. And now I'm like, oh, that's never going to happen to me before because I'm supposed to be a tough guy. And so that kicked me off on a journey of going to study with the different masters in the world, seeking to be the most dangerous person I could be because I thought that conquering others would actually heal me. And at the same time, I was studying to look for this state. How could I get back in it? How could I master it? How could I live and operate from it? And that's what kickstarted my journey. What the spark is, I went down the Taoist path, the Chinese medicine path, and I went down the Qigong and the internal martial arts of the discovery. You start to learn that the true war is within. The enemy was never outside. It never, ever, ever was outside. The enemy is always within. It's the voice within. It's like what you just said. It's your acquired personality. It's who you think you are. In that moment, I found me, which was a unbiased, noticing observer.
Yes.
And that is who we are, right? And when, everybody asks the question, well, who are you? My authentic self. Well, I agree with that. But here's the thing. Here's how we can figure out who we're not. Who we're not, as you mentioned so succinctly earlier, is we are a collection of our woundings from rejection, betrayal, abandonment. Then that makes us seek security, control, and approval. And now we live our whole life seeking security because we're afraid, seeking to control things because we've been hurt before. We don't want to be hurt again. And then we want approval. So that means we're looking for something outside of ourselves to validate who we are. And that's the fight. That's the war. That's the enemy. You know what I'm saying, Doc? And if you free yourself from that, man, the rest doesn't matter.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
So there's the method of training goes in the Stillness Method. And the Stillness Method is the cultivation of the 3 stillnesses. So first, the stillness in stillness. That's in a seated posture, a standing posture, where you are not moving and you're seeking stillness inside stillness. And the next step from there is, can you maintain that stillness? You open your eyes and now you have movement. Now, when you're moving, can you keep that same state when your eyes were closed, you were isolated? Now that's very difficult. All of them are equally difficult. So I want people to understand that. Yeah. Because for some people, stillness in stillness is insane because the mind goes crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So you have stillness and stillness you have to practice. So we do it in a standing posture, standing meditation, where you align the body, you learn to relax the tissues, stack the bones, feel the effect of gravity, focus in on your breath, increase the inhale and the exhale. One of the trainings we do for that is to get to the point where you take 30 breaths in 30 minutes. So when you can really get to, because your body wants a panic response, it wants to breathe. So you're teaching yourself in that stillness to override that. So for example, you go from a 6-second inhale and a 6-second exhale all the way up. You do the training to get to the point of a 30-second inhale and a 30-second exhale for 30 minutes. And in that, you're overriding that, because our biggest fear is of dying. And you're overriding that the lack of air is going to give us a stress response. So you're doing that in the stillness. Then from there, the next method is stillness in movement. So can you now keep that state as you're moving? So you start to see people doing the Tai Chi forms and things of that nature. For those of you who are athletes, can you be still when you're doing your physical training, when you're going for a run, or whatever it is? That's stillness in movement. But here's the big one. It's stillness and movement in chaos. So we have a chaos dial. And we start to turn now the chaos dial up, where it goes from cooperation all the way to complete chaos. So now, for example, all right, I've done my stillness and stillness. I've done my stillness and movement, my shadow boxing. Now you start throwing punches at me. Can I maintain that? Because the definition of peace is a choice inside of chaos. Now that choice is when you throw a punch at me, can I look at it and I roll with it? And I don't have a pause. I don't react. I don't freak out. And then I get used to you tapping me on the face. Okay, I can take it. Okay. I see, I was holding my breath. Where's that? So that starts to teach you. And then from there, you start to increase the dial till it's full on assault coming. But for you, you're still moving in that state of, everything is still slow because you've trained it. See, conquering others makes you powerful. When you conquer yourself, it makes you fearless. And it's in that, when you free yourself to be fearless, you free yourself from the fears. And all your fears are learned. And our biggest fear is that of dying. But the newsflash is, we're all going to die. It's inevitable. What's the point? Instead, we could use death to live. Death is my greatest teacher. I keep death right here, right with me. Because tonight I might go to sleep and not wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow I might wake up and not go sleep at night. One day, this is going to be true. So I keep that with me. And when I keep that with me, it reminds me to operate from a loving, kinder, true joy, unconditional love, great gratitude and joy. And that keeps me in the moment because I keep death right here in my rearview mirror.
Hope you enjoyed those highlights from this week's episode of the Thrive State podcast. If you want to check out the full episode, go to Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are heard. Now, if this podcast has given you value, you could really support us by giving us a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/Thrive State. Also, if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, you can get free chapters if you go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you love the content, you want to go a little bit deeper with me and my team, take the Thrive State Accelerator. It's the exact program I use to get my clients into the Thrive State. That's kienvu.com/accelerator, and use the coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Thank you again for being a part of this journey and for listening to these podcast highlights. Get more content on my YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at KienVuMD. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. And remember always, you are your best medicine.